What's up, y'all? Have you heard about the latest hit from the Second City? It's called The Devil is in the Detours, and it's being hailed as gutsy by the Tribune and another crackerjack cast of talented, charismatic performers, clearly creative and a joy to watch by the Sun-Times. That was very visual and descriptive. This is the Second City's 112th main stage review, and it's a hilarious and unhinged descent into a dimension where chaos reigns. The show runs Tuesdays through Sundays at the Second City in Old Town. Grab your tickets now at secondcity.com and go on and join the fun. Yo, are you one of those people who like scrolling through real estate listings, maybe watching shows where people find their dream homes? Have you ever thought about turning that into a job? Nah, for real, like seriously getting paid for your passion. Well, as a real estate broker, you can have a flexible work schedule that means you can make money on the real estate stuff, but then use your scrolling time for other things you love. And if you're like, Jacoby, that sounds cool and all, but where do I even start? I got you. Learn how you can get started this summer by visiting realtorsrealestateschool.com/begin. Today on CityCast Chicago, did you know it's pigeon racing season? Actually, let me back up. Did you know pigeon racing was even a thing? Well, it is, and bird lovers say it's leaving pigeons exhausted and confused in Chicago. That's why we're revisiting an episode about how to help the birds and why they are so much more than just rats with wings, as we've all heard them referred to. It's Thursday, July 25th. I'm Jacoby Cochran, and this is what Chicago's talking about. So in pigeon racing, birds are released sometimes hundreds and hundreds of miles away from home, and then timed to see how long it takes them to fly back using their famous homing capabilities. It's an old sport going back to at least the 1800s, probably earlier. Racers say it's a tradition and they contend pigeons are treated very well. But in the early 2000s, Chicago banned keeping and racing homing pigeons, mostly because neighbors saw all the feathers and bird droppings as a nuisance. Now, local bird advocates are saying they're having to rescue exhausted or injured pigeons that are passing through Chicago during these races. And according to Block Club Chicago, advocates estimate that over 60% of racing pigeons don't make it home. Back in April, we visited a Great Lakes Pigeon Rescue foster home and met a few of these former racing pigeons. I'm here with our audio producer, Michelle Navarro, and we are in Uptown with Susan Jica and Liz Challoner, who are a part of the Great Lakes Pigeon Rescue. Susan, we're currently in your home. Can you tell people who may have never heard of the organization, what is the Great Lakes Pigeon Rescue?
Great Lakes Pigeon Rescue was created to help the pigeons in the Chicagoland area. We found out, those of us who were interested in birds and bird rescue, that there was nowhere and no one to help the pigeons. The wildlife people couldn't, for various reasons, help them because they're not a native species. They're introduced from Europe, basically northern England. And the domestic people focus on parrots and other exotic pets and really didn't want to take in the pigeons. And there are so many of them.
Yes.
So we just sort of got together some like-minded people and we started reaching out to find out who could give them medical care. And then the ones who are not able to be released for various reasons, we find homes for them.
Oh.
So my pigeon that you're holding is a feral pigeon, meaning he's a city pigeon that should be able to live on the streets, but he is completely blind.
Oh.
So he was found, somebody probably scooped him up and saying, why isn't this bird flying? And our rehabber noticed he was so thin, and she taught him to eat by ringing a bell.
Oh, so what would have to happen for a pigeon to end up in you all's care?
People find them. I mean, I had 4 pigeons brought to me yesterday. They go on the internet and then they reach out to us and then we find somebody to transport them to one of our rehabbers or fosters. So I'm somebody that takes them in, and then I route them to the appropriate place. Is this bird releasable? Then who can give it medical care and appropriately release it? That's not just a random thing you do. There are steps to do it safely. Is this bird a domestic bird? I've got a big old king pigeon. I've got 3 racing pigeons that would not survive on their own. And then we get them healthy and reach out and find homes for them.
At any given time, how many pigeons could your organization be caring for?
We're over 600. We have a big facility out in Maple Park, Illinois, through wonderful, generous people have provided housing. So we have aviaries.
So we have volunteers that bring the birds into their home. And just like with cat and dog rescues, those people care for the birds and they try to socialize the birds so that they are more, pet friendly when they are adopted.
So we adopt out close to 400 pigeons a year to homes, and people love them. And I
have never in my entire life held a pigeon. I grew up in Chicago. One of the reasons we're having this conversation is because, at least in my life, alley cats and pigeons were identical to me in the sense that, why are there so many? How are they surviving in this city? Like, where do they go? Where do they live? Like, how did they get here? But alley cat, we've probably raised a few in my home growing up. But a pigeon, this is the first time I've ever held one. And yet it is just the sweetest little animal. This one can't even see it. It's so calm and comfortable in my hand.
I've taken him into schools. In one day I had 75 different middle schoolers on the south side of Chicago all take turns holding him, and he was so zen. He's not always zen at home. He's always a feisty little guy. We love our guy. But so many people bring me birds, and I said, do you want to come in and meet the pigeons? Because it's also a public relations thing. Yeah. People view them as dirty or pests, and they're astounded, and they'll hold my bird and they'll say, he's so beautiful. I mean, look at his iridescent.
Yes. Yeah. Just the colors on the neck.
And I say, this is what a pigeon looks like. The hundreds of pigeons you see all have that same beauty. And, they're here through no fault of their own.
Liz, how can you tell the difference if people are just like bringing you birds? How can you tell the difference between a domestic bird, a feral bird? How can you tell if we should release them or if we shouldn't, or if they should be adopted? How do you go through that process?
Key indicators of a domestic bird would be if it's the color. If it's an all white bird, that's not a feral city pigeon. That's not normally found in nature. If the wings are symmetric, the coloration on the wings is symmetric, that would be an indicator of something that somebody had bred for that marking. If a bird is behaving in such a way that they're not afraid of you, or if they actually come up to you, and that's what we call a self-rescue. If a bird is hurt or injured or, in trouble, they will actually come up to you. And with a city pigeon, that would not be the case. They would be, if you approach them, they would typically fly away. Let's see. Oh, the domestic birds, just the look. They might have feathered feet. They might have kind of a little crest on their head. So those would be more birds that would be more for show, or large white pigeons, king pigeons are actually used for meat. So basically, if a pigeon is looking injured, or, if you can catch a pigeon, that is one we would basically want to, take in and check out.
Give medical care.
Yes, correct.
So we've mentioned a few times in the conversation, Susan even said it, like, they are here on no fault of their own. They're not native to Chicago. And if you go around other urban centers, New York, LA, right, the US, they're not native here. So can you give us a little bit of that story? How did Chicago become home to, I don't know, what's the estimate? How many millions of pigeons in this area?
So it's not just Chicago. It's every city in the world.
Okay.
So everywhere but Antarctica, right? So they were raised for food back in Mesopotamian times. They were called rock doves or rock pigeons because they lived in the cliffs.
Okay.
And pigeons are wonderful mates and lovers and parents, and they breed constantly. And they were an excellent source of food. So when people from Europe came over, they brought pigeons as a food source, and the birds that escaped established themselves in the cities. You will not see a pigeon like this when you're hiking the Appalachian Trail. Okay. They need people. They depend on people's detritus. They have made themselves at home in the underpasses and the bridges and the buildings because they mimic their natural habitat of the cliffs.
So we talk about them in ancient Mesopotamian times, and even as colonial forces came over to America, they were brought. But as my understanding growing up, I always had a sense that pigeons, ravens, they also had a job to do at one point as like communicators, bringing messages from one place to the next. Is that one of the things that led to them just becoming these super smart animals?
Pigeons have an innate homing sense, and that trait has been bred to create the racing pigeons that are used for sport. So they're called messenger pigeons. That's another name for them. They would, as the name implies, deliver messages. There were several, let's see, is it World War I, I believe. Also, I think in Australia, they've been used to deliver messages. And I guess scientists have not really been able to exactly identify how it works, but it does work, except when it doesn't. And that's how we get a lot of racing pigeon survivors, because they don't all make it home due to predators or weather, rain happening.
Susan, it's one thing to look out on the pigeons, to see hurt pigeons, to see how society talks about them. But how did you get to this point where you're now, bringing pigeons into your home, setting people up with, maybe hundreds of pigeons? Like, how do you get from just identifying the problem to building a system like this? I wish people could see it. So it's just like, I ain't got no idea.
It just exploded. I did not mean for this to happen. I've always been a bird watcher, and pigeons never interested me. And then these women and a couple of gentlemen just said, "Oh, help us out." Oh, sure. I like to help people. I like to help animals. And then before I know it, here we are. And once I got to know the birds, I began to really see how special they are. They really connect with people, and they're so gentle. I've rescued many. Mostly people bring them to me. I've rescued many. I've never had a pigeon that I've rescued try and be defensive, which is natural for a wild animal. A dog or a cat even, you have to be very careful. A pigeon you can just scoop up, and they look almost grateful to you.
I love the language choice you made there too. Not to say I've never been attacked by a pigeon, but to say a pigeon has never been defensive towards me, because more times than not, we're coming up to these birds. We're trying to whether save them or get them out the way.
Any animal.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. I'll often have kids or other people, "Is that animal mean?" I was like, no, animals aren't mean. They just are who they are.
Mm-hmm.
Is
it possible for us to meet what was the name of this bird again?
Okay, this bird is named Kahlo after the artist.
So I had Kahlo on my hand for majority of the interview until they made it very clear they didn't want to be on my hand anymore. Now they're flapping around. Can we meet a few of your other superstars that you got here living with you?
Of course.
Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm David Plotz, the CEO of CityCast. The best way to learn a language is immersion, living where the language is spoken and using it every day. That's how I learned French as a kid. But if that's not in the cards for you this year, you can still learn a language the second best way, and that's with Babbel. I live in a city with a huge immigrant population. You probably do too. And in my hometown, a lot of my new neighbors speak Spanish as a first language, and we have lots of great Mexican and Central American and South American restaurants and stores. I wanted to be able to communicate just a little bit better with some of my neighbors. So I started with Babbel, the science-backed language learning app that actually works. And after just a few extremely enjoyable weeks learning Spanish with Babbel. I've already gotten comfortable ordering at a restaurant and eavesdropping on my girlfriend's conversations with her mom. Look, learning a language isn't always easy, but with Babbel, it is fun and it feels useful, basically immediately. That's why Babbel has over 16 million subscriptions sold. Plus, all of Babbel's 14 award-winning language courses are backed by their 20-day money-back guarantee. Here's a special limited-time deal for CityCast listeners. Right now, get up to 60% off your Babbel subscription, but only for our listeners at babbel.com/citycast. Get up to 60% off at babbel.com/citycast. Spelled BABBEL.com/citycast. Rules and restrictions may apply.
What's up, y'all? While most of our favorite summer festivals are just one day or one weekend, Ravinya's festival season is all summer long. You can pick from dozens and dozens of great concerts between now and September. All right, if you're thinking, Kobe, that sounds amazing, but what is Ravinia? I got you. It's North America's longest running outdoor music festival, sitting on a beautiful 36 acres right off the Ravinia Park Metro stop. And trust me, there's truly something for everybody. On July 27th, you can catch Killer Queen, a tribute to Queen, or you can check out Gypsy Kings with Nicholas Reyes on July 31st, or maybe the Indigo Girls and Melissa Etheridge is more your speed on August 11th. I made my decision. TLC and Shaggy, August 31st. I will see you there. I'm going to be out there with a loaded picnic bag and a nice blanket. But remember, you can also get yourself a pavilion seat if you like. I like to do a picnic pavilion combo. Check out Ravinia's full summer calendar now in the show notes and buy your tickets only at ravinia.org. When was the last time you visited Chicago's free zoo? Nah, for real, Lincoln Park Zoo is free. I was just up there like 2 months ago. From outings with family and friends to a picture-perfect date spot, Lincoln Park Zoo makes for a perfect, budget-friendly summer day. In between the penguin encounters, carousel rides, delicious food, free daily programs, and more, trust me, there is so much to do. Like, did you know Lincoln Park Zoo has one of the largest zoo-based conservation and science programs in the country? They prioritize conservation, both here in Chicago and around the world, and they take animal care very seriously, running the nation's top zoo-based animal welfare science program. So as you catch a glimpse of the many animals at Lincoln Park Zoo during your next visit, like my personal favorite, the red panda and snow leopard, you can feel good knowing your visit makes an impact. This summer, visit the pride of Chicago, Lincoln Park Zoo. Go to lpzoo.org to plan your next visit to Chicago's free zoo this summer. All right, so now Susan and Liz are going to take us into the room where the majority of the pigeons live. And I also love as we're going around, you have so much beautiful art representative of birds as well. I see herons and I don't know, and a bluebird, right? I've seen a couple pigeon pieces. I think you say that, you know, even before you had interest in the pigeon, you had interest in birds. Is this something that you track back to your childhood or?
As a young adult,
Okay.
then I started bird watching.
Oh my God, look how big that white one is. Is that the king pigeon?
This used to be my study.
It is in some ways
I don't
still.
even have room for my desk lamp anymore. So this is Samwise. He was found with 2 other pigeons. He was probably used as a breeder for meat pigeons. Those big ones are bred for meat. They're
So when people say pigeon pie, they really mean
Oh,
pigeon.
yeah.
pigeon
Yeah,
in that
it's a
pack.
delicacy in some
right.
countries, and squab is served in nice restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
I would never eat it. I don't eat meat. And, you know, to me, that's like eating a puppy. I would never eat it. Because they're so sweet.
So how long have you known Samwise?
Samwise was rescued out in the suburbs and rehabbed by wonderful Kathy Patrick. She is miraculous. And he was, I don't know if he was bald. One of his guys was bald. And then he was out in our rescue. And our rescue is many cages. And we also have aviaries, but he needed to be in a cage. And I was out there helping cleaning or whatever. And I go, look, he looks terrible. And they said, yeah, he's not happy here. Can you take him home?
So Samwise is much happier here.
Oh, yeah. I had him on antibiotics for a while, but he is a happy boy. He is very, very eager to have a woman, a wife. You should have seen him chasing this bird around last night. It was hilarious.
We're looking at another white bird. What's the name of the one down there?
That's Lupita.
Okay, so Samwise has a thing for Lupita.
Yeah, but Lupita has no interest in Samwise, so he was chasing her all over the place.
We met the not so positive love affair between Samwise and Lupita. I'm also looking at, is this Shalom and Wilma?
Shalom was rescued at Montrose Harbor.
Okay.
And she couldn't fly. And these little guys run fast. But they cornered her and captured her and brought her to me. And this was in August or September. So I've had her this long. She's a big, healthy racer, but she has an old break in her wing. Can you see the difference between her face and my feral pigeon, my Kahlo?
Yeah,
so
a little bit.
You can
the
look.
The nose is a little, the white part of the nose is a little.
The slope of the nose is very distinct, very regal, heavy chest muscles for flying fast. So when we get a racing pigeon, even if they're not banded or anything, we can tell.
Are they just not able to really live out in the wild like that?
So racing pigeons are a domestic bird. They are not able to live in the wild. They require human support for food, water, shelter.
Their whole lives, they were raised by humans. So they don't have excellent foraging skill. They also don't have good predator evading skills. Come on, Boo Boo. Come on. Look at this beauty.
Oh, it looks
So
like a
this
Michelle.
is probably a ceremony release bird.
Oh, so like when we see like weddings or funeral. I never thought about where those birds go after they release them.
Okay.
Do some of them come back?
Yeah.
But they weren't raised to be out there, and so
Right.
they're easy picking for predators.
What the business person will probably tell you, they have the fancy basket and the ribbons and the birds fly and they're beautiful. Oh, they'll come back. They'll be safe. But pigeons are so expendable because they have
breed so
babies every
often.
month. But something to include is this ceremony release stuff is brutal. I've had them literally die in my arms from starvation. It just makes me weep.
I'm glad you mentioned that. That's something to consider. And then a couple of others I see, Valentino is right next to Wilma. What are some of the distinctions between these two?
So, all right, you tell me. Which one is a feral and which one is a racer?
All right, off back, I think Wilma. No, hold on. Because actually, as I look at Valentino, Wilma's nose is a little bit more regal, but Valentino's chest seems, I don't know. I'm going to say Wilma's the racer. That
You're
posture
right.
seems really strong. That
You're
chest
right.
seems like they've just been standing very
good.
strong, stoic, and with a good posture the whole time we've been here. Valentino kind of been chilling, kind of
He's a
looking
feral.
around, kind of looking down.
He has neurological damage. So basically brain damage, I suppose, probably from a collision. See how he's looking up? We call that
Yeah.
stargazing. But he is a riot. He has got personality. I hope he gets adopted soon. So last night I had all the birds out because I wanted to do a big cleaning. Can't tell now, but I really cleaned.
How often do you have to clean up after them? Our producer Simone told us that they are not like, humans. We can hold it. They kind of just use the bathroom and use the bathroom.
That's why they have pants on when they walk around the house. Didn't you notice the bird sitting on you? It had pants on.
I thought it was a bib. Those were pants.
Yeah, they were diapers.
Nice.
Yeah, flypers is what we call them. Yeah. See, this is her diaper. We get them from Bev's Bird Boutique. She does an excellent job. And I mean, Kahlo's got a tuxedo. I mean, they have really cute designs.
Now that you're saying that these flypers exist, I am being more and more convinced
you're more and more swayed.
that maybe I need a pigeon at home.
Michelle's been saying for the longest that this was going to be something that pushes her. She has a little deck. She was like, maybe I could do something out there. I cannot stop staring at Wilma. This posture
She made
is so strong.
Front page of the Tribune. She was above the fold on the Tribune. That
It's so
photographer must have taken 1,000 pictures.
It's so still and so strong. And so if I'm in the street and I see like a pigeon like this, like how do racer pigeons that are out in the wild, how do they make it? Do they just develop those skills? Is it luck? Like how would a strong bird like Wilma kind of survive out there?
She wouldn't. She'd get eaten by a hawk.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Or run over by a car. They don't have any of those skills. Yeah. 6 months a year if they're lucky.
So most of the pigeons we see out on the street, while there may have a few domestic ones thrown in, but they're likely to get weeded out because these pigeons have just had to survive the streets of Chicago. I mean, when we think of, again, animals that sort of just live on our city streets, so much goes beyond sort of just what their species is. It goes back how we think about them, right? We were talking with the person in city government responsible for sort of cleaning up the rats in Chicago, and they talk about rats in some ways like villains. When we talk about cats, right, we're a little more empathetic to cats. Though if we look at the numbers, the ecological damage they do to other species is nuts. But then the pigeon, it's one that we just sort of like treat as, we dismiss, we kind of walk over, we look at as dirty. Susan, why is it important for us to challenge that narrative a little bit, to see them as the sort of vulnerable but also beautiful creatures they are?
I like how you said that. I think it is always a good thing to be kind. And that's what we need to do, is to be kind to the creatures we share this earth with. And I understand that overpopulation of pigeons around certain buildings, it's not a good thing. So, but there are kind ways to try and work on solving that. So that's what I think. And pigeons are intelligent. They saved thousands of lives during World War I and World War II. I mean, using their homing instincts, they bond with people. So there's nothing bad about them. They're just trying to live their life. Yeah.
Now I know moving forward, I probably will not look at them the same. I'm gonna be trying to spot a Wilma moving forward. But for folks listening to this podcast, and because the city isn't responsible and some of the animal care orgs aren't responsible, if I see that I can't, I mean, I could, but I'm not gonna just pick it up and take it home. So what should be my first call to action?
Pick it up and take it home. So, but yeah, I mean, if you're comfortable, just scoop that baby up, tuck it under your arm like a football, right? No cage, just a box,
Just
paper towels, quiet.
Okay.
And somebody will be in touch pretty quickly.
Okay.
I would encourage people to have an open mind when it comes to pigeons. And before you disdain them offhand, I would encourage you to take a minute and appreciate the beauty of them. And if possible, help one, rescue one, come meet one of us. And I think it might be mind-changing.
And also another myth that we need to challenge is that they are not disease-ridden.
Okay.
You can pick up a pigeon safely. Just use appropriate hand hygiene like you would any other situation.
Do they not? Because at least when I think of feral animals, if I just sort of package everybody together, my first thought is rabies. I don't want rabies from a raccoon or a cat. Or can pigeons carry rabies?
No, I don't know what percentage, but most of their illnesses they would have are not zoonotic. They do not cross species. So, I mean, you do have to use appropriate hygiene, but yeah, I've handled hundreds of pigeons. And sometimes I forget to wash my hands.
So you have gone from little to no interest to starting an organization to caring for them in your home. What is it about them that you've fallen so in love with over this time?
They're vulnerable, and there's no one else for them. I guess that's what it is. I mean, Liz does a ton of rescue, and without her, our organization couldn't function. So, I mean, you spend all this time.
I mean, I did not love pigeons to begin with. So I'm a great example of somebody who did open their mind and, gave it more consideration and realized. And then that kind of morphed into the pigeon rescuing. And now that's pretty much what I do. So I don't have any pigeons. I live in an apartment where the landlord does not allow pets. So
She brings them to me.
yes.
What is your ability in the city of Chicago to have or not have a pigeon?
There's actually an ordinance against owning pigeons, and it was to prevent people from having lofts and raising great amounts. And they don't prevent people from having a reasonable number of pets. I mean, this is a lot, but these birds don't stay, you know. So, and I'm clean, and pigeons are quiet. Except for my little bird that coos all the time, but most of them are quiet. They're not destructive like parrots are. They don't chew on things. They're really quite a wonderful, if somebody wants a bird as a pet, they're wonderful. And also they've been domesticated for 10,000 years. Unlike the parrots, though they might be captive bred, it's still in their DNA to be wild.
Yeah.
And it's not in the pigeons. They adjust great. Since I have so many, I don't spend a lot of time socializing them. And I'll have birds that are a little bit, they're kind of scared of people. And then the adopter will get them. Like Gandalf was like that. Gandalf was great. He used to be in that cage there.
What a beautiful name.
I know. He was this beautiful gray. And he was great. He would dance for you. And as soon as the adopter got him, he got cuddly. He was never cuddly with me. So when they get their people and they bond with them, it's special. I think this guy's going to be special. He dances a let bit.
Well, Michelle, keep your eye open.
Valentino.
And I like the name Valentino.
No, that's fine.
It's fun coming up with names. Yeah.
You got to let us know when you name this little one down here.
Yeah. I was thinking my guide in Tanzania was named Promise. So I'm thinking of that name, but I'm thinking he is a very special person. So maybe I'm wait till I get a real fancy pigeon for Promise.
Well, it's very clear, Susan, you have made a promise to all of the pigeons you come in contact with to take care of them, to rescue them, and to make sure that they can live as long, healthy lives as possible. It has been an absolute pleasure. I want to thank Susan and I want to thank Liz again for making time for CityCast Chicago.
Thank
you
you.
so much.
It was our pleasure.
Before we let you go, stay tapped into all CityCast Chicago has to offer by bookmarking our website, chicago.citycast.fm. I say it every episode because I love the website. If you go to it now, you're going to find helpful neighborhood guides. You're going to find a packed events calendar. You can subscribe to our daily newsletter, Hey Chicago, where our newsletter editor, Sydney Madden, is cranking out one of the best newsletters in the city with the news you need to know, the events that are great to stop by this week. So please make sure you're getting that every morning, Monday through Friday, directly to your inbox. Share it with your friends and family. Don't gatekeep the podcast, the newsletter. This ain't one of them things where they get so big and they like fall off. No. We're going to get big and we're going to just keep being five. That's something you're going to only get on the podcast. Every single episode is some good news. The homies over at Real One Show got a weekend of events planned for us. It's called the Real Good Shit Weekend. It includes the celebration of house music at Navy Pier Saturday night from 5:30 to 10, an after party at California Clipper in Humboldt Park. Then Sunday, they throwing an open aux at Studio Shapes in Lakeview. If you got music, pull up. You can play it. As always, I appreciate you for listening and reading. We're going to be back bright and early tomorrow. We'll talk to you then. Peace. What you're hearing in the back is the beautiful cuddling sound of the local pigeon.
All right, Stinky Binky, you want to come visit?